All right, guys, back on Southeastern 16 with Max Barr, previewing some of the big games on Saturday in SEC basketball. One of those, the Alabama Crimson Tide, going to
Oh
host
yeah.
the Creighton Blue Jays. As some
Whew.
Alabama fans will tell you, the biggest rival out there, the Blue Jays of Creighton. That game's going to take place 8:30 p.m. Eastern, SEC Network. That one's in Tuscaloosa. Prime time, Max Barr, for this heavyweight showdown between Alabama and Creighton. Although I think when I look at this matchup and initial thoughts, it comes to Alabama potentially having a guy play this season who's not played yet, and then for Creighton, it's missing a big piece of the puzzle. So that's kind of the first thing I look at in this one.
Yeah, poor Pop Isaacs. I hate it. He was having a great season. He had multiple games, 25 plus points. Blue Jays fans, if you're in here, feel your pain. I hate to see Pop Isaacs go down. I love his game. Anyways, speaking of injuries, please tell us that Chris Youngblood is making his debut. We've been waiting. He's been warming up pregame. We've been hearing the reports. He's getting ready. He was maybe, rumored to show up last game. Didn't. Give us some Chris Youngblood here. Obviously, Latrell Wrightsell out. Huge blow. Latrell Wrightsell was having a great second year in the SEC. Kind of provides that sharpshooter for Alabama. Blake, no betting line right now as we record this, but I've got it at Alabama minus 9.5, give or take a point. I wouldn't be surprised to see it a little bit tighter, though, because, it is a big rivalry game.
Well, and we start with the injury stuff because I think that's important because if you are just someone, just jumping into this and saying, all right, tell me what I need to know about Creighton. If you were just saying, give me one thing this season I need to know about Creighton. Well, they beat the number one team in the country. They beat Kansas on December the 4th, right? They beat them by 13 at home. An impressive performance. But it's what we just said a second ago. Pop Isaacs goes for 27 in that game, played 39 minutes, and now it's a different team a week and a half later. And, since then they beat UNLV pretty handily at home, 83-65. But this is a different test, right, against an Alabama team that if you're looking for one of the strengths of Alabama, it's what? It's looking at just the guard play of what
Yeah.
they're doing right now with Mark Sears and LeBaron Philon, Aiden Holloway, maybe getting Chris Youngblood back in the mix, as we said. And I think that's where, when you start to find some of those things, that big spread to some people may be a little surprising. But I think, again, it's also just a matter of the context of where maybe Creighton's at, what the expectations are now without Isaacs. And then for Alabama, Max, we saw them come off of a very impressive performance on that same December 4th at North Carolina, which, again, I don't think this is North Carolina is a national championship contender by any means right now. But the way Alabama played in that game, you had, 6 guys in double figures, just evenly spread in terms of just the balance that they had. And I think now, like we said, if you're getting a player added to the mix who we thought, could be kind of like the X factor this season, really help on both sides of the court, that only strengthens the roster for Alabama. And so this being in Tuscaloosa too, I think it seems like on paper there are a lot of those things in Alabama's advantage here.
Yeah, one of the keys of the game I'm looking for here, Blake, without Pop Isaacs now is the big man. It's been the story of Creighton for the past 4 or 5 years with Kalkbrenner, one of the best big men in the nation, and he just keeps getting better. Numbers just keep going up. He's got an offensive rating right now of 144, and for those of you that just don't like stats being thrown at you, he's a top 20 offensive efficiency guy right now. Okay, he is just killing it. And last year, the Alabama game, this was in Omaha at Creighton. Kalkbrenner plays 24 minutes, 19 points, 9 of 11 from 2, just ultra efficient. Had 8 rebounds, 3 blocks, only 1 foul. He had a great game last year against Alabama, and Creighton's going to need him in a massive way. That matchup, Big Cliff against Kalkbrenner. Oh my gosh, we've got 2 powerhouses going to work down low, Blake.
Well, I'm about to give you the stat of the game here in a second because I think this is what's going to dictate how this game
Okay.
plays out, and it's something we talked about before with Creighton, and we'll get to it in a second. Before we get there, if you want to bet on this game, if you're saying, you know what, I'm all in on the Tide money line, give me a parlay added to the mix, maybe Max,
Ooh.
all in on
Ooh.
the Tide here. You can bet on BetOnline, or you can bet on the Blue Jays if you want as well. BetOnline, the world's most trusted betting platform, your source for online betting. The earliest odds to in-game live betting, BetOnline provides you with all the action, the ability to watch the games as they happen, largest selection of odds on everything from football, the NBA, college basketball, NHL, UFC. It's all there. Head to BetOnline today. Use that promo code BELIEVE, BLEAV, for your welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline. The game starts here. All right, Max, here's your stat. Are you ready for it? So,
Give it to me.
what do we always talk about it? And I feel like this was the case last year. Could be wrong about that. But who is the team in the country that fouls the fewest?
I knew it.
That's Creighton,
It's the Blue Jays. It's the
who
Blue Jays.
averaging only 10.7 fouls per game, a remarkable stat. And again, I don't think this is new. I feel like we've talked about this. Maybe I'm wrong on that.
They do it every
But
year.
yeah, so it's again the way they play, and but on the flip side of that, who is the 11th team in the country in free throw attempts per game? That would
That would be the
be
Tide.
that'd be the Tide, Alabama, who's averaging 27 free throws per game. So you talked about like the big man matchup and how that
Yep.
goes in the paint. Well, there's a lot of things that are going to be determined probably in the paint in this game because I think it is knowing how Alabama plays. They're going to shoot an open three or they're going to drive that thing and try to get to the free throw line. They're not going to settle for a lot in between. We understand that. That is a big piece of the puzzle here to
Yes.
see, if Alabama can get Creighton to foul because that's just not something, again, with the way they play, it just doesn't happen often. And when you have a Kalkbrenner who can do what he can do, it makes sense in terms of those numbers being what they are. Again, understanding he's going to block shots and those kind of things. And so I think that's a big key here. Knowing, Max, Alabama, they're going downhill, to use the phrase. They're going to play downhill here. And I think we see how this game, from a physicality standpoint, plays out in that paint because I feel like that could determine this thing.
Last year, Blake, Mark Sears shot 0 free throws in only 2 games.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. One of them was the Clemson Elite Eight game. The other one was against Creighton.
You know what? That's what I remember. I'm like, I feel like we've talked about this same story before. It is because they played last year around the same
Yep.
time, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Alabama only shot 13 free throws as a team in Omaha last year. Creighton, a team who is not known for aggressively, relying on the free throw line, they shot 29 free throws. It was a 29 to 13 free throw discrepancy in an Alabama game last year. Sounds crazy. I would highly doubt the discrepancy is that big this time around in Coleman. But yeah, that's probably the number one, obviously the number one key to the game here. The other one, Blake, that I was kind of leaning into was offensively for Creighton 3-point line because they rely on that pretty heavily. And Alabama so far has done a great job at limiting 3-pointers. They are top 20, I believe, top 20, top 25 in 3-point percentage defense. So you have that strength of the Alabama perimeter defense kind of playing right into what Creighton likes to do offensively.
Yeah, two teams also that really don't force many turnovers. I think that probably the same story we said last year. Alabama only turned over 4 times in that game last year. Again, it all runs together. I was like, I feel like we've talked about this exact same matchup before. It makes sense.
We have.
We did this a year ago. So I think that's it. Like, it's the same probably dynamics here in terms of seeing, what it looks like. Alabama's going to need to shoot the ball well here. I mean, we say that all the time, but I think that's a big part of it. Like you mentioned, I think Creighton's, defense inside the arc has been really good from a percentage standpoint. Again, we understand why that is because of how they facilitate their defense. But as we get to making picks here, Max, this to me, it's like I think we'd be talking about a different game if Isaac's on the floor. I know some people are going to be like, come on, but it's true, right? I mean, look at how they beat Kansas. Like
Yeah.
he he was the driving force for that. And without him against a guard-oriented Alabama team, who, oh, by the way, he's also got, potential All-American in the front court, and Big Cliff, also could get there too. I mean, it's just I think it's a hard path for Creighton here.
No, definitely. Isaacs was, when you look at Creighton's team 3-pointers, he was second to Ashworth, of course. Ashworth, the point guard, fantastic shooter. Yeah. But when you take Isaacs out, now the second and third 3-point shooters are Isaac Trout, who's kind of a stretch 4, and also Jackson McAndrew, also a stretch 4. So you kind of lose that 1-2 shooting punch in the backcourt, kind of to offset Ashworth. It puts a lot of pressure on Ashworth now on the perimeter. The thing is, though, Blake, we were talking about fouls. Kalkbrenner's not going to get in foul trouble. I highly doubt it. Even in his 2 games where he had more than 1 foul this year, only 2 games with more than 1 foul this year, he still played 38 and 39 minutes. I mean, he had 3 fouls in 38 minutes against Texas A&M. Okay, so the guy's not going to...
That's a great point. Go. Yes, there you go. There you
go. So you're probably getting a full game of Kalkbrenner here. It's going to be tough down low. I'm going to go with Bama here in the revenge game. But without Pop, it's going to be tough for Creighton to keep up on the perimeter.
Yep, I'm picking Alabama in this one too. I think it's a good spot for the Tide. And again, these are 2 teams that have played some pretty tough competition at this point. But I think Alabama just seemingly, with potential of young blood coming back, this game's at home. Yeah, maybe a little revenge for the Tide here in this one. So, all right, guys, you can check out all of our previews coming up for the big games on Saturday here at Southeastern 16. Check out all of our SEC basketball stuff on a daily basis. We do here and SEC football as well. What else you got, Max?
If we're wrong and you want to come tell us, we will probably be live during this game.
Yeah, that's
right?
true. Yeah,
we will probably be live. So if you want to come get us in the flesh, or if you're an Alabama fan, you want to come celebrate, we'll be live. Either way, come join us.
We'll be live. Turn on those notifications. Hit that subscribe button. Check out all of our SEC basketball stuff here on the channel. We appreciate you watching. As always, we'll talk to you soon in Southeastern 16.